Impossible Mission, not to be confused with Mission Impossible, was one of Epic Games' most famous releases. Although we must point out that the game should be credited to the developer Dennis Casewell. It started life on the Commodore 64 back in 1984. The first element of the game to be created was the player character's animations, which designer Dennis Casewell lifted from a library book about athletics. Casewell recalled, "I animated the somersaults before I had a clear idea of how it would be used. I included it because the animation was there for the taking." The Commodore 64 version features early use of digitized speech, which was provided by the company Electronic Speech Systems, who drastically raised their prices after Impossible Mission became a successful test case.
Destroy him, my robot.
The game's title was one of the last elements to be finished, according to Casewell. The choice of name was delayed as long as possible, and Impossible Mission was more resorted to than chosen.
Destroy him, my robot.
In 1985, Impossible Mission saw release across 3 more platforms. Let's take a look at the Acorn Electron version first. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I really suck at this game, but that's not to mean I don't appreciate Dennis Casewell's absolute right decision to put jump as a button press. It makes playing this game feel so right. Anyway, as we can clearly see, this Acorn Electron version doesn't look as good as the Commodore 64 original, and we shouldn't expect it to. But what we should expect is for this port to play just as well, and I'm happy to say that that is the case here. What we have is a smooth, pixel perfect playing game. It's just a shame there is no speech, although that is a common point across many of the ports. Also released in 1985 was the ZX Spectrum port. It is quite the colourful port, but sadly that's all it has going for it. The game just doesn't feel right at all, plus the elevators move at the speed of light, which can really get you into some serious trouble. Oh, and some elevators don't even seem to respond, yet they look like they should. For sure, not the best port out there. The last port to be released in 1985 was for the good old BBC Micro. This port looks, sounds and plays very much like the Acorn Electron port, and that's not surprising since both were handled by Peter Johnson. So in 1986, it was the turn of the Amstrad and the Apple II to get ports of Impossible Mission. Here we are with the Amstrad CPC release. It's nice to see this version using some colour and to have more than a poor copy of the ZX Spectrum's audio. So presentation wise, this isn't bad at all. Just a shame it doesn't play as well as the Commodore 64 version. It's not as bad as the ZX Spectrum, but it does suffer from fiddly elevator controls. You have to be pixel perfect in the center of them to make them work. This can be really annoying at times. I also find the enemy robots to be a little too fast in movement, making the game tougher than it should be. And here we are with the Apple II. Now, in the past, the good old Apple II has surprised us with many good ports. Is it going to surprise us again? Well, no, not really. Apple fans received a fairly standard port that's plagued with slowdown. This is unfortunate as it does affect how the game plays. A year later, the Atari 7800 got a port of Impossible Mission in 1987. Now this is a very colourful port and one that looks good for the 7800. I like the new design of the robots too, more modern looking than the original. Sadly, like a lot of things on the Atari 7800, the playability isn't how it should be. The fault here lies with the jumping. The arc is too long and shallow compared to the original. This makes the game feel different and, well, more difficult until you figured out the jumping mechanic. The final traditional port came out in 1988 for the Sega Master System, and it's the best of them all. Even better than the original Commodore 64 version. Well, the speech isn't, but at least it has speech unlike every other port so far. Basically, we have a perfect playing and excellent looking port of Impossible Mission. The programming was handled by Gary Priest. Yep, the same Gary Priest who programmed Road Rash on the Mega Drive. He has quite a few good titles under his belt, as well as a few stinkers such as Technocop and Demolition Man on the 3DO. Well, we can't always be perfect. And here we have the Amiga 1200 version. Actually, this is an option mode on Impossible Mission 2025. This bonus mode basically replicates the Commodore 64 original. Nothing fancy has been done with it, and that's fine. It's a pure port, as pure as you can get. As for Impossible Mission 2025, I'm not going to feature that. Well, besides the cool music, it's a different game, and to be quite frank, rather crap.
Another visitor.
Impossible Mission even made its way portable onto the Nintendo DS. This is quite a good version. You have the option of playing an all-new enhanced mode, which looks and sounds way better than the original, or you can play with classic graphics and sound, or a hybrid of both. Well, I say hybrid, but it's basically just the modern look using the old character.
Another visitor! Stay a while! Stay forever!
Okay, let's take a look at all those versions of Impossible Mission running side by side.